Hey everyone, I'm Andy, and welcome to Host and Greeter Training for Altar Live. As a host or a greeter, you're really helping to deepen the experience and engagement of your members and your visitors in your events, your meetings, and your lobbies. In this episode, we're actually going to talk about the main reason that we do what we do as hosts and greeters, to engage. The heart of an experience in Altar Live is through small group video conferencing, which is almost certainly the reason that your church or organization chose to adopt this platform. And it's our task as hosts and greeters to move from shallow to deep in our conversation and our relationships online. Rows, tables, and rooms are integral to the Altar Live experience. In a church building, you'll have ushers and volunteers that can kind of help guide people to where they need to be. Online, however, sometimes people need a little nudge, a little help, a little encouragement. That's where your presence as a host or greeter calls for more than just a smile and a friendly face. And engagement happens easily in the rows, tables, and rooms that we provide in Altar Live. Think of each of these spaces in the Altar Live experience, the auditorium and the lobby, with rows and rooms and tables. The auditorium is a more formal space, similar to your sanctuary. This is where people are mostly listening to something together, worshiping, reflecting, and absorbing. Rows offer a sense of being together. There's an energy in gathering together. In fact, it's not unusual for most people to not sit during the live stream, to remain anonymous. The lobby's a more organic space, similar to your fellowship hall or the lawn outside of a building. This is where people can mix and mingle at tables to have a side conversation in groups of 2, 3, or 4 people. Or you can gather people together in a larger room with up to 500 people at any time. And this is where people can really talk and contribute, much like a classroom. Now, the biggest question you may have as a host or greeter is, how do I motivate people to take a seat? I mean, you don't need to force or compel it, but how do you encourage people to do so? Before we do that, let's talk about some reasons that people may not want to take a seat right away. Some people may want to just remain anonymous. This may be due to the fact that they haven't found any good reason to sign in just yet. Your suggestions and invitations in chat might move them to sign in, but don't feel like you need to convert them. Some are just gonna choose to remain on the side all the time. They're not comfortable with being on camera, maybe ever, or maybe just today. Or sometimes they find it odd to be looking at their online neighbors face to face while listening to worship and readings and sermons. Some people may need a reason to take a seat with someone else. When you walk into a room full of people in a physical gathering, you often rely on cues from the hosts or ushers of the event to really direct you towards timing and how the event is running. Some people online may simply be the same way and are relying on you as the host or greeter to really clue them in to what's going on. Your job is not just greeting, but instead facilitating conversation, community, and real life happening all around you. So, with all of that being said, here's a couple of tips to really help you get the ball rolling when it comes to being a host or greeter. Number 1, purposefully host. Introduce yourself in the main chat so everyone really knows who you are. When people join your event, they subconsciously might be looking for who is in charge or who they can ask questions to. Go to the main chat and introduce yourself. Hello, I'm Andy. It's so nice to see you today. Also, purposefully try to connect your attendees with each other. Make introductions over direct messages in a row or a table together. So if you take a seat in a row and you see someone is not really diving in, head over to the general chat or the My Chats and introduce yourself and introduce new people. Hello. Welcome, Sam. Thanks for joining us today. Matthew has an open seat next to them. Something along those lines. Number 2, and this is a big one, be specific. Answer those unspoken questions of why you are gathering here today, or what you're going to be doing here today, or what it's going to feel like, or what it's going to sound like. Oftentimes when we come to church services, we've been doing it for so long that we just kind of know exactly what to expect. But if you start to put your visitor hat on, and especially start thinking of a brand new online attendee, you'll start to realize that there's a lot of weird things going on all around you. I mean, look at the screen right now. There's a guy that's talking to me. There's a chat going. There might be a poll that pops up at some point. There might be some announcements that pop up. And this is all very different from a normal church service. Make sure that you are specific in your chat and in your small group video conferencing times. It will help to really alleviate some of the stress of people that are clicking on that link and trying to dive into a community and not knowing where to start. Number 3 bleeds into exactly what we were just saying, and that's give directions. Always make sure you're letting people know what's happening next. Help them follow along and give them directions about what to do next. By using announcements and the chat area to really guide people along in your events, you're going to begin to notice that more and more people are going to want to engage with you. Number 4, and this is a big one, show. Don't just tell. Model the interaction that you want to see yourself. Grab a seat in one of these rows. Make sure you're posting in the general chat. Make sure you're answering the polls. Make sure you're really showing people what it looks like to be a member of your community. Now that you've got the ball really rolling in your events and lobbies, here's a couple of tools to put in your tool belt to really propel engagement forward. Number 1, encourage your attendees to take a seat. Everyone watching the live stream sees this seating chart beneath your live stream video. But until there's a lot of people sitting, many people are going to choose to wait and see what others do around here. Who's going to be the first to sit and who's going to join them? It kind of feels like an 8th grade dance at some point. Your job as a host and a greeter is to overcome that inertia. Make sure that you are clicking on one of these seats and that you have your camera turned on as well as your microphone. Be ready and willing also to use the chat to really engage with anyone logging in. And speaking of chat, number 2, use the general chat. It's going to be one of your greatest tools. Let people know right here that the seats are meant for sitting in and for turning the cameras on and for really being able to converse with one another. People logging in that have never seen this before are not going to have any idea what's going on. And remember to do this several times during the event, as some people are going to be logging in late. Some people are going to miss other chats. Sometimes they're not just going to want to scroll back up to the top of this chat window over here. Also, at specific breakpoints during your service, after the worship, after the readings, after the announcements, after this, after that, use the general chat to make sure that people know about seating. Number 3, create a group chat with 2 or 3 people that you think will be open to sitting together and invite them to take a seat. Offer to sit with them as well and take a seat yourself ahead of them. Number 4, another big one, use your announcements. There's a number of different ways to use announcements to encourage your engagement. Get creative. Use a modal announcement at the beginning of your event to advise people to take a seat. Use a notification every 10 minutes or so to keep this in the forefront of their minds as well. And number 5, and this is also another big one that we are starting to see more and more people utilize in fun and awesome and cool and creative ways. Use polls. Like announcements, polls are a creative way to get people engaged. Use some lighthearted icebreaker questions like, how was your week? What's the best part of this season for you? And on and on and on like that. You can also turn the sermon or message portion of the event into a poll. You can then use a question and have people form groups to continue their conversations in the lobby after the event. And this isn't even scratching the surface as to how rich and powerful these tools are for you and your engagement in your community. And that's all the time we have for this episode. But remember, this is the fun that you get to have as hosts and greeters. You are forming a community. You are helping shape what your church or your organization looks like through polls, events, announcements, tables, lobbies, rooms, and all of these various tools that the Altar Live platform brings to you. If you ever have any questions, you can always reach out to us on any of our socials or at altarlive.com. Thanks so much for watching.